Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Seeley, president of Seeley Test Pros and Leap, helping students to succeed in all kinds of tests from 8th grade to grad school throughout Ohio.
And I'm Mike Bergen, president of Chariot Learning, helping students with test school and life based out of Rochester, New York.
Between the four of us today, we have over 78 years of experience at the highest levels of the test preparation and supplemental education industries.
We both love to talk and learn about the latest issues in education, testing, and admissions. So let's get down to tests and the rest. The fascinating test prep professionals we want to profile today are Dani Fleischer and Kevin McCormick. We're so happy to be speaking with you both. How are you?
We're good. Thanks for having us.
So can you guys tell us a little bit about where you are and what you do?
Sure. So we're based in central New Jersey, in Summit, New Jersey. We're both middle school language arts teachers. I teach 6th and 7th, and Kevin teaches 7th. And we have our company, Steel Trap Tutoring, where we work with students nights, weekends, pretty much anytime we're not in school, to help them prepare for the ACT and the SAT.
So how did you guys get your start in test prep, given that you're school teachers?
So given that we are school teachers, we don't make a lot of money.
There's the rub.
Yeah. And actually, teaching is a second career for me. I used to work in finance on Wall Street, and I left and went into teaching because that's what every personality test and all the different Briggs, I forget the name.
Myers-Briggs, my favorite.
Yes. There you go. So I was told I should be a teacher by that. And it was something that interested me. And I actually had an undergraduate degree in English. And so I became a teacher, but like I said, didn't make any money. And so I wound up working for a test prep company after taking a test that indicated that my scores were good enough that I would be able to learn this stuff. And so began the journey.
And so when you say so began the journey, that's like fast forwarding the actual learning. So actually, I guess when it comes to test prep, what do you both teach? What tests do you prepare students for? And then how did you learn how to do it?
So we pretty much exclusively do the SAT and the ACT.
Great.
As English teachers, it's fairly straightforward in terms of the grammar, in terms of reading comprehension, what have you. Math, I have an MBA in finance, so I have some math chops, but had to go through learning or relearning a lot of the stuff that I had looked at in quite a long time. And I'll let Dani speak to what her experience was when she got going as well. She's also an English teacher and has a degree in English as well, but I'll let her speak for herself.
Yeah, so pretty much both of us I started a little bit later than Kevin, but we both started working for another company. And the founder of that company was a math guy, so to speak. So he trained us for the SAT and the ACT math. And so because his company he did not split, math tutors and English tutors. So that's how we got our start in, becoming good enough at the SAT and the ACT math. I mean, I was always a good math student, and like Kevin said, he has an MBA, so it was not, we take to the math pretty easily. And then after I worked for actually several companies, and so I got my first sort of experience with working with students, with honing my math skills, honing my grammar skills. And then eventually I just said, I can kind of do this better, I think. I took what I liked from these companies and I learned from what I didn't like. And I wrote our grammar curriculum and I put together our math curriculum. And, we just said, we know now, we have the experience now to go to our own students and bring them the knowledge and also we're pretty good interpersonally with students, right? I mean, that's like half the battle,
It's really important, right?
Yeah. Right.
That's no matter how good you are at the material, if you can't connect with the students, they're not going to improve.
Sure. So we've, spent the last 10 years honing all of our tutoring skills basically. And the tests keep on changing. So we've had to adapt, and we've had to learn new math and, establish new grammar rules. Yeah, but that's been our journey.
I'm curious, as teachers, like classroom teachers, how do you find, I like being a test prep, like tutor, let's say, versus a classroom teacher? Because like a lot of people are in test prep, might not have been teachers. I'm curious what you think sort of is the difference there.
So one of the things that I really enjoy about test prep is as a classroom teacher, you've got 20 kids in a room, and how many are disinterested, or, you got a certain number of good students, certain number of disinterested students, what have you. And there's a lot of classroom management and stuff that really has not much to do with teaching. When we sit down with a student who is committed to improving their test scores, it's quite enjoyable because they engage on a level that we don't get to on a daily basis. So it's a higher level. We're both middle school teachers. So test prep is for these exams are obviously more complex. The material is a little bit more challenging. So I find it to be pretty stimulating. Dani mentioned when the tests change, we have to change. I'm a bit of a geek where when it changes, I enjoy that because it gives me something else to look at and something else to try to figure out. So it's actually, it's kind of like a welcome change from the everyday.
Yeah, that's a lot of us feel that way, right? And I think part of it is to love that process, love the keeping up with the changes in the tests so that you can kind of bring all that information to your students and their parents and your community. And I find that sometimes we get a better sense of what's going on in education on the national level by analyzing what happens to the tests, that those changes just ripple throughout and impact students. So you have to be a little bit of a content geek about it.
Yeah.
Now, are there aspects of test prep that you find challenging or frustrating?
I'll take that. So, what is frustrating is I recently had a student who would not do what I was asking slash telling her to do, right? She wouldn't, in the very beginning, it's all about content. I don't have them time themselves. I don't have them worry about that. We've got to learn the rules, and then we'll work on, on time management. But we quickly need to work on time management. And so the first step to that for me is I have them sit down, do their homework in one sitting, and time themselves. And the student would not do it. And she's like, I can't focus for that long. And, we had a conference with her mom, and I said, well, the test is, 2.5 hours. So we need to start training your brain to sit for that long and focus for that long. And, so I talked to the mom. I said, please have her go take a mock test. There's a place in the city that gives them. I need to have a sense of where we're at. And this mom could not convince her daughter to go take that
Wow.
test. And,
Yeah.
I said to the mom, I said, look, I don't fire students. I said, but, so I'm happy to continue to work with her, but you are not going to be happy with the results. I try to stay as, transparent as I can. So it is frustrating when I do bring, a fair amount of experience and knowledge to this. And I do every once in a while have students who are just not interested in doing what I tell them to do. So I find that very frustrating.
I find it's funny you say, I'll say to the parent, like, you're paying me potentially a lot of money for my expertise and advice. If you're choosing not to take it, it's like I can come up with so many other analogies to where in life, like sports or diet, where you're like, if you're not going to do the thing I tell you, I don't really know where this is going to go, right?
Exactly. And some parents hear me, some parents like they know their kids, right? They doesn't come as a surprise to them. And some parents just do not want to hear what I'm saying. So we're not working together anymore with this particular student.
So, how about any insights that either of you might share with either current or future test prep professionals?
Insights, giving away trade secrets. No. So
To your
yeah.
colleagues.
No, I'm just kidding. I guess, for me, we talked about it a little bit before. It's the the importance of spending that time and connecting with the student before, expecting too much of them. If I have to figure out, I have to understand how the student learns or what works for that student. And I would say probably we probably don't spend as much time doing that in the beginning. You're on the clock, right? If I could just sit and have a conversation with the kid for an hour, it would probably be money well spent. And so I would say that's super important. And then the other thing is just, for as a tutor, when I am well prepared, when I'm focused, and when I do a good job myself before I walk into a session, it always goes a lot better, as opposed to, if I'm too busy or I haven't done the necessary things to put myself in the right state of mind. So I guess that's the two things. If I was advising somebody to start, it's, get to know your students and make sure you're prepared for your sessions.
I really appreciate that point about preparation. A lot of us fall prey to that idea that we could just show up on demand teach anything. And I have a bad habit of reviewing tests that I've never seen before with
Oh, yeah.
students. And
I
it's a
do
bit
that.
of a tightrope act, and it keeps me on my toes. But at the same time, right, I do much better when I've seen a test several times and when I've really gone through the
Sure.
questions and I know, and we all are that way. So that idea that preparation and having your material ready and your curriculum and like knowing what you're going to cover to a large extent makes it easier, I find, to go off the page when you have to and to respond to the student directly instead of trying to stay one step ahead of the student with the material that you haven't
Well,
seen
it's
before.
like this. It's like, I'm going to be able to figure out the problems. I'm going to be able to get it right, but am I going to be able to explain it to the student? Well, I know it's going to be
Right.
this because, I can just see from the answer choices or what have you. I'll get it right, but I can't necessarily impart how to do the problem correctly or what my thinking is. And so it's that type of a situation where I need to be able to explain it to be able to be effective.
And can I just add
Absolutely.
one more
Uh,
insight that I would share? I would join your fabulous Facebook group because truly
the test prep
the
tribe.
test prep tribe,
There you go.
yes. I mean, truly, it has been just, I mean, anytime I have a question, I can post it there. There's people are so generous with their materials and, things that they've found. And, my drive is just full of materials from members of the test prep tribe. I have found it to be meeting you and using your test break curriculum. I don't know how I would have adapted to this new ACT without your group and the insights.
We all can agree with
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. Like
Yes.
absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
Love that. All right. Our favorite question, perhaps the most important one. What is something that your colleagues might be surprised to learn about you?
Well, one thing that they would probably be surprised to learn about me is I spent several years, I had a business of refinishing mid-century furniture. So I
Ah,
spent, a handful of years buying, old mid-century pieces, which was a struggle sometimes because a lot of people are looking for those same pieces. And I would take them and I would, refinish them however that needed to happen, and then I would resell them. So that's not something that, as a writer or teacher or a tutor, that many people would.
no, that's very different from what
Yeah.
you do. Now, do you still dabble in refinishing old furniture? Like, do you have an interest in that
I have
still?
an interest in it, but I do not dabble in it. I had to rent a large space to do that in. I'm
Yeah.
spraying chemicals, so it takes a lot of money just to dabble in it. And so, no, unfortunately, I still scroll Facebook Marketplace to look at old pieces, but I do not dabble in it.
You find that sad. Well, I think what's funny about that, it's I can imagine as a project, it's being able to see something, to have a vision of something, to get it, and then to get to that point where it's complete,
Hmm.
right? Although I would sort of use the analogy of sometimes in test prep, it's nice to be like a score, a number. We see it rise, and then we see it, we know it's complete. I always say in teaching in classrooms, I don't know that teachers get that sense of satisfaction. So I wonder for you if projects like that were satisfying to come from beginning to end.
Completely. And just to take something that someone might throw in the trash, right? And
Yeah.
to bring it back to life. And that, yes, that completeness that I will tell you, teachers never get. I mean, we just,
Yep.
every once in a while, like we'll see a student improve, we'll see, a good test score, but it's not the same thing. There's
Yeah.
not that satisfaction of like seeing something complete.
I think in test prep, we get all the good things about education and none of the bad things. I really believe that.
Kevin, do you have any surprises you'd like to
So
share?
I am 57 years old. I still play basketball on a regular basis, but I've been snowboarding since 1987. So I'm probably the one of the original, what do they say? I'm an OG snowboarder.
That's great. Now, how did you manage to get into snowboarding at a time when other people had no idea?
I'll tell you
what
exactly. I was coming up to my 18th birthday, and I saw they used to have a show on MTV Sports, and there was snowboarding, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna do that." And I remember my mother was like, "What would you like for your birthday this year?" I said, "I want a snowboard." She said, "What the hell is a snowboard?" And she got, I got a snowboard. I remember I went to Vermont. I went to Okemo Mountain, and I get there, and I literally had to sign a waiver to say if I got hurt, I wouldn't sue the mountain. I went out, and I'm kind of going towards the lift, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know where to put it on my feet. And then I saw this little kid, like this 12-year-old kid, kind of get onto the lift, and I'm like, oh, okay, 1 foot in. I kind of go over, and then I get on the lift, and I'm like, I have no idea how to get off the lift, and crash and burn all day, and spent a weekend just punishing myself. But so began the journey.
That's cool.
I assume that you figured it out.
I figured it out.
How to get off the lift?
Actually, it took me more than that weekend, let me tell you. And Dani can attest to this because I've taken her out, and I taught her how to snowboard, and she did not like getting off the lift in the beginning either.
Yeah, he took me, I was 40 years old, and he was adamant that I learn how to snowboard. So it took me, days of just being on falling on my knees, falling backwards, crashing off getting off the lift. But it was, it was a challenge, but it's really fun, actually.
But there's a lesson there for your students, right? Just in terms of something can be really hard in the beginning and you might hate it. And then you find that place where it's comfortable and you like it, or you derive satisfaction or pleasure. So I love when I have to do something hard and then using that as sort of an analogy with my students so they can understand.
Definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. A little humility, maybe.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Dani, Kevin, we could talk about you guys all day. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
If listeners would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So they can either call 646-499-0019, or they can email us at steeltraptutoring@gmail.com.
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. Be sure to join us for another fascinating topic and guest on the next Tests and the Rest.
Did you enjoy this episode as much as we did? Find expanded links and more for this and all of our episodes at our show page at testsandtherest.com. While you're there, be sure to explore everything the larger TestBright site has to offer, including real, expert, unbiased answers to the toughest admissions testing questions. Of course, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Tests and the Rest on your favorite podcast platform. If there's a topic or guest you'd like us to feature, just let us know and spread the word.